Hi, and welcome to my channel where I make dishes inspired by some of my favorite video game characters. Today's dish is inspired by Barret Wallace from the Final Fantasy VII series. Barret went from being one of the least interesting Final Fantasy VII party members to me to one of the most interesting after the most recent remakes. I have absolutely adored getting to learn more about him and see his past in a more detailed fashion. Sure, he plays a bit of a comedic role, but he's also full of so much passion for his goals, so much love for Marlene, and so much guidance for the whole crew. I've loved seeing him turn into almost a big papa bear for not only Marlene, but for the characters like Yuffie, and even Cloud, taking them under his wing with his expertise. His past is tragic, and learning about his relationship with Myrna and Dyne was so bittersweet. Corel went from being a bit boring to me when I was younger to being one of the more gripping and engaging moments of the story, and truly I felt my heart sink at the raw emotions expressed by Barret and Dyne in their standoff. So I love Barret's story and personality so much more than I ever did when I was younger, and he also became one of my favorite teammates in combat in the remakes. When playing the original, I never really kept Barret in my party, and in the remakes, I'm bummed out when Barret is locked out of the party because then I feel like I'm not at my strongest. All in all, Barret holds such a special place in my heart now because I've gained so much appreciation for him since my first experience with FF7. And I can't wait for all of the touching, funny, and heartwarming moments we'll get to see of him in Remake Part 3. When thinking of a dish for Barret, I feel like he would love very classic and soulful foods that you can never go wrong with. He's so strong and tough, and I imagine out of all of the foods he loves, he would really love a good old juicy burger, piled with delectable toppings and sauces and a tavern-like bun. I'm sure he'd love to have one almost every day at 7th Heaven with a good draft. But he can't help but think about foods that Marlene would want. Marlene loves to share food with Barret since she doesn't get to see him too much while he's busy with Avalanche missions. And what kid doesn't love pasta? Therefore, I envision that Barret would love a hearty dish of cheeseburger macaroni pasta as a kind of mix of one of his favorite dishes with one of Marlene's favorite foods. He'd recognize that it would appeal to her tastes, give her some protein to grow big and strong, and he'd slip just a couple veggies in so she was secretly getting some good vitamins and minerals. Here's what you'll need to make your own. 1 pound of ground beef, a yellow onion powder, Italian seasoning, paprika, optional MSG, garlic, soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, tomato paste, pickled banana peppers, beef broth, elbow noodles or any noodle of your choice, sharp cheddar cheese, Parmesan cheese, and parsley. We'll start the recipe off with just a little bit of prep before all of the magic happens at the stovetop. Grab your cutting board and peel and mince at least 5 cloves of garlic, then set aside. Then you'll grab a yellow onion and peel and mince it, setting it aside for later as well. The last thing we'll chop is some pickled banana peppers. Drain and grab about a 1/4 cup of the peppers and then roughly chop them so that they're in smaller chunks, then save for later. The only other large piece of prep is to shred your cheese if you don't have pre-shredded cheese. I know that generally pre-shredded cheese can have some residue on the pieces of cheese that alters the texture of your cheese if you're melting it. So I've started trying to grate my own cheese for melted cheese sauces, like in pastas. You'll need 2 kinds of cheese, sharp cheddar and Parmesan. You'll grate 8 ounces of the cheddar, which should be about 2 cups, and then you'll shred about 3 ounces of Parmesan, or about 3/4 cup. If you're like me, you may need to pay the dog cheese tax. You can then place both of the grated cheeses into a large bowl and then slide back into the fridge until we need it for later. So now we can head on over to the stovetop. Grab a Dutch oven or a large pot and start heating it on medium-high heat. Once the surface is warm, add in a tiny bit of olive oil and then toss in 1 pound of ground beef as well as your minced yellow onion. You'll season the 2 to taste with salt and pepper, and then you'll also add in some seasoning. You'll add about 1 teaspoon each of onion powder, Italian seasoning, paprika, and optional MSG if you would like. Stir and sauté the beef and onion and continue cooking until the beef is browned and the onion has become more golden and soft. If you have any excess grease, go ahead and dab it out with paper towels or drain if you need to. We'll then toss in our minced garlic into the mix and continue cooking and sauteing for about 30 to 60 seconds, and you should notice that the pot has become even more fragrant. We'll then add in a lot of ingredients, so toss in 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 16 ounces of tomato sauce, a 14.5 ounce diced tomato can, a 1/4 cup of tomato paste, your chopped pickled banana peppers, 1.5 cups of beef broth, and then 2 cups of your uncooked noodles. Stir everything together and then continue heating the pot on medium-high heat, stirring occasionally. It shouldn't take too long, just a few minutes, for the liquid to start bubbling, and once it does, you'll reduce the heat to medium-low and then cover the pot with a lid. We'll continue cooking for about 15 minutes, and we'll stir occasionally to make sure that nothing gets stuck or burnt onto the bottom of the pot. We'll cook for around 15 to 20 minutes, give or take, until the noodles are cooked and the liquid has reduced. Once the noodles are soft and ready, we'll turn off the heat and then add in our grated cheeses from earlier, as well as 2 tablespoons of parsley. We'll stir everything together until the pasta has become well coated and the cheese has melted, and with that, we can scoop into our serving bowls and enjoy. This pasta is so homey and delicious and comes together so easily. I also love dishes that come together in one pot like this, since there are less dishes to do, and I know I'm not alone in that thought. This pasta is such an interesting mix of saucy and cheesy and has so many intriguing but not overwhelming flavors. It's warm and gooey and filling, but not overly so, and each mouthful is such a pleasure. I absolutely love pastas in general since I'm a carb fiend, but this one has a special place in my heart for being so different yet so familiar in flavor at the same time, and it can appeal to the tastes of so many different people of all different ages. I imagine that Barret would usually love to share this with Marlene at 7th Heaven since he's so busy, but I also feel like he is a hidden great cook and would occasionally surprise Marlene with some home-cooked cheeseburger macaroni pasta. She would get so excited because while she loves Tifa's version, Barret's version just has a little something extra special that she can't put her finger on. Barret actually got this recipe and his wide breadth of cooking skills by trying to woo Myrna so many years ago, and while it can be bittersweet for him to get lost in the kitchen, he can't help smiling at Marlene's excited faces and dances as she takes a bite. He'd admit that he felt pretty proud of himself for making something that could make her so happy. One day, he might even cook up a batch for the party. Yuffie would likely tease him for the apron he was wearing, and Sid would admire the way he interchanged his machine gun for a wooden cooking spoon. The planet may be dying, but Barret would make sure to provide the energy and happiness he could to his loved ones in the meantime at any cost. The recipe card is in the video description if you'd like a more quick and concise version to give it a try. Like if you want a bite, subscribe for more geeky treats, and comment what foods Barret reminds you of. Thanks for following along.